I'm here, man.
We're live too. Hey, Hall.
Hey.
How about this topic this week?
Sure.
What is your thoughts on intuition?
I have a lot of thoughts on intuition.
The reason I ask is,
yeah.
the stereotype is that women have tremendous intuition, much greater than males.
Okay.
Which I would kind of probably agree with that based on my lifetime of experience.
Sure.
But sometimes when people talk about intuition in business, I think a portion of society kind of poo-poos it because, it's theoretical, or it's more metaphysical, or whatever it is. Esoteric.
Yeah.
Thing. Lawyer. And I know I feel strongly about it, but I'd really be interested to see your thoughts on intuition.
I mean, I use intuition daily. Like I'm an intuitive decision maker. I use logic and data to support. So I definitely approach problems differently. And I think
you do.
Honestly, I could say throughout my entire professional career, 99% of the decisions I make start with my intuition telling me something. Then I have to back it up with logic and data. So I've always I just have a gut feeling about something. Like if I look at just my career path, the stuff I've done, it's very non-traditional. Just the risks I've taken, just leaving corporate, just taking risks and jumping. It was my intuition telling me to do it. And then I always had the data to support it, or I felt like I had the ability to problem solve my way through it. But intuition is always leading me. That's why I need someone like Matt in the firm. That's where a great counterbalance, because he's more of a data-driven person.
He'd be running by the seat of your pants every day.
Well, no, but he's more of a data-driven, logical person, and which is extremely valuable
That's
and important.
Forefront of his
yes, exactly. I'm the opposite of that. So there's a great counterbalance there. But I've always been a very intuitive decision. Intuition leads me, honestly. I can't think of a decision I've made where there wasn't some level of intuition. I just get a feeling sometimes. Sometimes it caused me to move quickly. Sometimes it caused me to take pause. It caused me to do a lot of different things, but intuition is definitely at the forefront of my decision-making process.
You think there's something in the way humans are made that we all have the ability to know when something is or is not right, but sometimes we just either don't pay attention to it, or sometimes we just intentionally tune out those feelings?
Oh yeah, I think so. So yes and no. So I do think there are some people that are given a level of intuition that you can't explain. Some people just have an intuition about them that there's no logical explanation. It's more of a worldly, godly explanation. I do think we all have the ability to be intuitive if we listen. Most people are so distracted and so filled with information, they're not truly listening to what the universe is telling them. They're not listening to intuition. Because I think if you slow down, and because in my opinion, to be intuitive, you have to slow your thinking. That's hard for me to do, but when it comes to intuition, I do it all the time. You have to be very, you have to be very pensive in your actions and just listen and actually feel. You have to know what to feel, and it's once you get in tune with it, then you start understanding it. You understand those feelings you have about certain things, and it makes it a lot easier to understand intuition. But at first, it's hard. But I do think there are people that are just given an ability from an early age that they're just intuitive by nature.
So you're part of your skill set is the ability to read a room. There's no question. I've known people able to read a room, but not quite like you. Do you include the concept of intuition as part of that ability?
Yeah, I think so. Again, it's yes, I do, but I think it's also observation, the skill of observation. Most people don't observe. I can read a room by just observing what's going on and paying attention to things others aren't. How a person's sitting, where their hands are, where their feet are, how their feet are positioned, how their body's positioned, the inflection in their voice. These little things you pick up on, and you can start and if you listen enough and pay attention enough, you can understand what those things mean. And there's a level of intuition too, but I think it's more so a level of observation.
So it could be a learned skill.
That can be a learned skill. Reading a room can be a learned skill. There's intuition to it, right? But if you understand what to look for and how to truly observe, not look, but observe, it's different, right? Looking is just seeing what's going on. Observing is seeing and understanding.
Okay.
And I think if you do that, it's very easy to read a room. So that can be a learned skill.
Sales manuals years ago talked about modeling. When you would go into a sales appointment, you would to gain the trust of the other person, to put them in a position of comfort to engage with you effectively.
Okay.
Model their speech pattern, the pace, the physical attributes of the way they're sitting and so forth. And I remember being very uncomfortable in the beginning of learning this skill, but I went against my own intuition at that time, and I really honed it in, and it served me well.
Yeah.
It's when I had a lot of face-to-face business discussions.
Yeah.
Modeling was almost like, in 95% of the time, it worked like magic. Yeah.
I mean, it can be a very powerful tool. However, I think the more powerful tool a person can use was one, just truly caring about the other person. Because if you truly care about the conversation you're involved in, your intuition just opens up, because then people open up to you, right? If they know you really care about that interaction you're having, it's a lot easier to read the person. They tell you more, they open up more. It makes the conversation a lot easier, and you usually get a better outcome from it. It goes with sales, right? If I'm trying to talk to a potential client, like, I do truly care. So it's easy for me to close that business because they know I'm not just selling them.
Certainly.
I truly care about the outcome they're going to get. And if you can show a person that, and you show them by actually being a person that cares.
Yes.
That's the thing. You can't pretend to care. You have to actually care.
I remember early on for me that, let's say it was late in the day and I was my last appointment of the day, and I was tired, and I was maybe going to just mail this one in. By forcing myself to go into that modeling mode, oftentimes would readjust my thinking, because there was no escape. If you're fully doing modeling to give your potential customer comfort in that conversation, you are now engaged. It was a great way to I don't know, refocus, no matter how tired or maybe out of it I was at that moment. By modeling, it forced me to be thoroughly engaged and genuine, which I was, but to make sure I exhibit that.
Yeah, and I think also engaging in active listening. That's the other thing people don't do.
Yeah.
To me, that's the hardest thing for people to do, because most people are listening to respond.
Certainly.
Active listening to me is listening to understand. Like, I want to understand what you're saying and why you're saying it.
Right.
So that takes active listening. Because if I was just listening to the words to think about how I'm going to respond, I may miss a lot of the nonverbal cues. But if I'm listening to truly understand why Eric is telling me this or saying this to me, I'm going to get a whole different context from that conversation. But you have to slow yourself down to do it. And you got to stop your brain from trying to think of a response and tell your brain, listen, pay attention, because that initial response is probably not the right one. I can watch people's faces when I love watching conversations when I know no one's actually listening. They're just listening to respond to one another. They're almost starting to talk when they think the other person is about to slow down.
And they usually do it when they've already formulated their response. They break eye contact. If they're having eye contact with you, they'll break eye contact and they'll get glazed. I mean, it's like it's from person to person, it's almost the identical response every time.
You see, because when the response comes to them, their eyes change. If you watch their eyes intently, really watch, and if you're speaking to them, and I've done this in conversation with people just to see if I was right, and you get to a point where I know they want to respond to it, and you watch their eyes kind of like either pupils dilate or they become like they're not paying attention anymore. They know exactly what they want to say.
Exactly right.
And it's just a totally different thing. And it's wild to watch. If you pay attention to it and you hone that skill over and over again, you'll be head and shoulders above most people in these type of interactions.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who the motivator was that gave this particular talk, but they reiterated what you just said. Their words were, when I see that they've lost eye contact because they're already preparing or immediately have derived on their response before I even finish my statement, I stop.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. I've done that. I've done that in conversations.
That's a tough skill set. I don't think I have that. I would love to learn that, because but basically he goes, and then he would continue to say, if they are somewhat still engaged, they get confused. You really put them. You can really trip somebody up that way.
Or when you see that, you say, okay, go ahead. Like, I'll just stop there. Go ahead. I know you want to say something. Go ahead. Like, no. I was just gonna. I said, what? Just say what you were gonna say. And then I'll be like, that wasn't where I was going, but appreciate the information. Let's keep going.
So, okay, it's a little sidebar, but it's so specific to what we're talking about.
Okay.
Where I saw a lot of this in my career was in the guitar business when I would get around a famous person.
Okay.
Now, I'm guilty too for being a fan, but a lot of times when I would watch a rock star meeting fans, because that happened a lot with what we did. We would go and the fan would get a chance to get their picture taken with them, maybe buy one of the guitars, and we were kind of like massaging that whole thing. But I got an interesting time once watching. It was Paul Stanley of Kiss, and I watched for a good hour. Fans come up, and every fan that got there wanted to tell the story to him about what he means to them, this and that. And he would sometimes try to say, "How are you?" Or if there's a child with them, Paul would address the child, and oftentimes, it was just so apparent that no matter how he tried to be genuine and have a genuine moment, the fan would steamroll them. Now that's kind of an extreme version, but that's the same thing. Like you're so ready to. That's
why people don't have intuition. That's exactly right. But back to the beginning of the conversation. That's why people don't have intuition. Because to have intuition and hone it, you have to be listening, and observing, and slowing down, because you won't hear your intuition or feel it if you're always
100%.
Fast to talk, fast to act. Like you just got to get it out. Like you're not you're missing. So 85% of conversations are nonverbal.
Right.
Like when you think about it, like, I feel like that's why I hate Zoom calls or phone calls, because you can't really read the person. You can a little bit if you understand voice and inflection in voices and when certain words are said a certain way. But
and if you know the person,
but seeing someone face to face is such a different way to read the person.
1,000,000%.
So different.
And to tie in though with that experience, I remember cognitively being aware that I need to, because I think early on, one of the first times I was in a room with him, I had a bunch of things to say, and we were talking about the design of the guitar. We could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. And he went to interject, and I think I rolled over him, and he just quietly shut down. And I felt so bad at that moment, but I learned. I said, "Hey, he really wants to engage. And he probably has insight that could really help me here." And I became a listener from that moment on, because I was embarrassed by my own blather. Which is very common.
We all do it.
When we get starstruck, we do that. But if you listen enough, it's amazing. And now every time I have met a musician that I've admired, Al Di Meola being the best, first thing he said, "Well, do you have something that you'd like us to sign?" And that last time, and I just looked at him and I paused and I said, "No." I said, "Just the fact that I get the chance to shake your hand and thank you for the music." And I waited for the response, and it was like amazing. I was having a conversation.
Right. That's so different.
With a famous person, not a moment.
Not interaction. It's a conversation.
No, and it comes natural the more you try. I mean, believe me, I didn't get it overnight, but and you can see them change. They'll offer more. Then the conversation started. We got a couple extra minutes there with them.
It's genuine. That's why.
Right.
It's genuine.
100%.
People don't do that. I mean, think about the world we live in. It's not genuine. Most people are putting up fronts. Most people are fake. Most people have these ulterior motives, and there's very few genuine people out there. But when you're around them, and you can feel it. And I think, and again, that comes with intuition. And I think there's just so many pieces to it. And to your point, like that, everybody should strive to have genuine conversations, because they are completely different than anything you've ever experienced. Like a truly open, genuine conversation, not surface level. "Hey, how's your day? Oh, good." The bullshit. Like, no, a true, like, actually listening, understanding, and conversing with one another. Like, that's a totally different ballgame.
And anyone listening out there, here's a little tip. See, I'll give it to you free. When you do, during the course of your life, meet somebody, a famous person, whether it's wherever, music, acting, business, if you thank them quietly for what they have given you, and then you shut up and let them respond, you'll have a better interaction as opposed to blathering on about what they mean to you. And you have this record, and you saw them this time, and you love this movie. engage
Mhm.
them, thank them,
Yep.
and then just let them respond.
Exactly.
You gave them a compliment, let them be reciprocal.
Mhm.
It works like athletes, works
Yeah.
like magic.
Silence is wonderful in those situations.
It's hard.
It's hard. It's hard.
For a
It
fan,
is.
it's very.
It is
I speak from
very
experience. It's very difficult.
It's very hard.
Very difficult. Okay, let me ask you this question.
Okay.
When you think back, let's just talk about your personal life now, and then we'll ask the
Okay.
same question in your business life.
Okay.
Can you remember a time in your
Mhm.
life where all logic strongly led to decision A,
Mhm.
but you went decision B because of intuition?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of times.
How did it turn out?
Intuition was always right.
Mm.
Intuition was always right.
Really?
I mean, take when I left corporate America. I mean, that's a professional one. I mean, you're talking about personal. That's just the big one, right? Everything logical said that's the stupidest decision I could have made. Left the job that paid very well, benefits, like could do what I wanted, travel the world. To say, I'm going to start a law firm. Don't know how to do this. Fuck it. Let's just jump and see what happens. Totally the young kids, my son going to college in a couple of years. Let's go from making X to making 0. Makes total sense, logical sense. That made no sense, right? But my intuition told me I knew how to do it. I knew it was what I was built for. So logic did not dictate that decision, intuition. A lot of things in my personal life, the same thing. Like there's just been times where, there are a lot of things in my life I can't explain. I can't frame logic around it. That's hard for me to deal with. I am a logical thing. I'm a lawyer, right? So logic and data are important to me. Intuition is always leading. So when I can usually sync the two. Intuition is the forefront, leading the decision, and I can always say, I see why I did that. I see why that's happened. There's a logic behind it. There have been instances.
So your intuition eventually links up with logic.
Correct.
Just isn't apparent at the moment you made the decision.
Correct. But there are a few times in my life that sometimes shit's going on. And I'm like, yeah, my intuition is telling me something. There's no logical sense to any of this, but I have to follow my intuition. And some of those situations are still underway. Some of them have happened in the past, but they're few and far between. But in those situations, I'll still always follow my intuition because it's never steered me wrong.
Never.
No, there's not one time I can remember in my life where I made an intuitive decision that led to a bad result.
I can remember a few times I went against my intuition and it turned out terribly wrong.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, right, like 100%. Like if you go against that's why I think into it, whether you believe in God or whatever you believe in, right? I'm religious. I believe in God, so I think there is a level of intuition that's guiding you.
Sure,
right? If you listen,
right.
You have to listen. Most people don't listen,
no.
But if because I do believe, like that's why I've never went against my intuition. My intuition made me do stupid shit too. But it all had a purpose. Looking back, in hindsight, linking things back together, it's like, it all makes sense when you look back on it. In the moment, it might not.
Right.
In the moment, you'd be like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what? Why? None of this makes sense. But then when you look back, it could be a week, a month, a year, or 10 years, away. Looking back, you're like, I see why it all happened. The picture makes sense when you look at it in the rearview mirror.
Okay, let's get specific for a second.
Let's get there.
Okay. Real specific.
Okay.
So, and you and I were friends at this time. We had known each other. We had done podcasts a year and two before this happened.
Yeah.
When the pandemic started,
and
we were told we had to stay home. What was your gut telling you at that moment? Was that insanity, or did you think at that time it was rooted in solid decision making?
My intuition said something's off. My intuition, it didn't make sense to me. Logic wasn't there. It didn't make sense. And my intuition was like, I said, this is something. It's something, right? We have to. Yes, it is a sickness that we have to be careful, but the way they were spinning it, in the way I'm like, my intuition, like something else is at play here. Like that's why I was always like, I'm not listening to this shit. Like I'll follow rules to help the bigger picture, but I'm not going to do stupid shit for the sake of doing stupid shit. Like going in a one-way direction in the aisles of a grocery store is not going to prevent somebody fucking getting COVID. Let's just be real. Like that was stupid. You know, putting a mask on to walk across the restaurant and then take it off when you sit down made no sense to me. So my intuition was like, something's off. This is not right. Something's wrong. And looking back, it was right. Like it was completely a fucking shit show. There was no good decision making.
Do you think that maybe the bulk of the people who did buy into all the media remediation, or all the is that the right word? You think inside they knew there was a level of bullshit to this, but they didn't want to go against the narrative? And how does that work in the human psyche? How does that work? I'd love to know that.
I think it's the people that want the sense of belonging. So they intuition may have said, yeah, this doesn't seem right, but I don't want to go against the grain because I want to feel like I belong to a group.
So they had other motives or ultimate results they wanted to get to.
Yeah, like I don't give a shit about fitting into a group, right? Like I'm secure with who I am, where I am in my life, the people in my life. I don't need to agree just so I fit in. I'm going to always buck the norm if it makes sense to buck the norm. There are a lot of people I think that just said, hey, I want to do what everybody else is doing. Like this, let me put the picture on Facebook and support this cause and this cause. Like that's the shit that people do. They want that sense of belonging.
Like a virtue signal.
Yeah, and I hate to use that term, but it's true. Like
I can't describe it any other way.
No, because when all these things happen, right, and everybody changed their Facebook profile photo to I support this cause or I support this cause. It's like you can't even point to that country on a map. I can guarantee you that. But now all of a sudden, like you are for all these countries or you are for all this bullshit. And to me, be genuine. Like you don't have to care about every cause. But I think like when it came down to the pandemic, because it was so widespread and it was talked about everywhere, there were a lot of people that didn't. Because you can't, if you look back, can you logically make sense of the shit we did?
No.
Like logically make sense of it?
No, most of it.
I can't make logical sense of any of it.
I don't know why we. I don't like using the word complied because it sounds like I'm being.
That's what we did, though.
But why we were so quick to comply with the draconian nature of most of it and the insanity of a lot of it.
Because it was the fear factor, it was mass psychosis. It was like, let's create fear. Great. Why was there a death ticker on TV? Think about that. The first time in our adult lives we're on TV, there was not a stock ticker.
Not every channel.
Most news channels. There was a ticker of how many people have passed away.
Yes.
That's insanity. The only point of that is to create fear.
Certainly.
I don't need that data for anything. That data does not do anything for my life. All it's going to try and do is this shit's bad. Like I better comply because I don't want to be one of those statistics. Like that's really what it was about. When you look at it, it was a massive mass psychosis experiment. I feel like a part of it was.
Yeah, I think so. And I did have a lot of intuitive feelings at the time that were being played in a big major way. I couldn't put all the puzzle pieces together, and it just seemed like it was so complex. And the fact that I wasn't a medical professional, that didn't yield me into wanting to do all that either. But it seemed so complex and so over my head.
Yeah.
I just like, I mean, I got to be indifferent to some of the stuff. But my gut was telling me that something is really awry. And as time has gone along here, and the veracity of claims and the debunking of the data and all the stuff that's gone along with it, it has now trained me to maybe listen to my intuition even more. Yeah, because I kind of got played. You know,
I remember the moment where it dawned on. I think it dawned on me early. At first, I was like, okay, this is something. I'm gonna just sit back, listen, see what's going on, not go crazy. When they said we're closing down gyms, but now you can buy to-go alcohol, I'm like, okay, we've lost our fucking mind. Because if you want to keep people healthy, have them go to the gym, work out, go outside, exercise. We're going to close those down, but we want to make sure you guys can get fucked up and drunk while you're sitting at home watching the news and how many people have passed. we're going to allow you to buy to-go alcohol at gas stations. Yeah, makes total sense. When we did that, it's like, okay, this makes 0 sense anymore. And that's why I was like, fuck it. I can't even listen to this shit anymore.
When they were telling us that we had to wear a mask while we were exercising outside around no one. When I was getting accosted on the Montour Trail here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Around no one.
Correct.
I realized that we really are being played.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a while, though, to figure it out because I didn't want to believe that. I really didn't want to believe that there was some forces at play that had, for lack of a better phrase, an evil intent in manipulation and control. And I didn't want to believe that.
Purely about
didn't
control.
Want to believe that.
No one wanted to. No one wanted to believe that.
But as time's gone on, and my intuition, I believe, was correct.
Yeah, I think a lot of our intuition was correct at that point in time. And I think it was an exercise in seeing how much they could control us. And I think the powers that be realized how stupid we are as a society. Yeah. How easy it was to control us in that situation.
Well, yeah, a lot of governors, especially, or state. I mean, I don't know if I didn't pay enough attention to the national or the federal politicians, but the state politicians, local and centralized, were very much in play because we live in a society that puts great emphasis on local governments. And where do they report to? The state?
Yeah.
The governor has a lot of power.
Yeah, right.
And it was from state to state. It depended how draconian things were. Really had nothing to do that I could see with numbers of illnesses. It was just the philosophy of the particular governors.
Yeah, I mean, when West Virginia opened up, it was like Disneyland. I remember driving across the border to go eat tacos and fucking margaritas because I'm like, this is freedom. Like, you could go to a restaurant and eat and be around people and not have to wear a mask. I remember that was the best feeling in the world after being locked in your house for months. West Virginia's like, yeah, fuck it, we're gonna open up. I'm like, oh my god, 20 minutes, let's go. Just drove there and had lunch one day.
Yeah, but to go with that draconian control, I wanted to believe that some of it was an overreach, but it was rooted in someone being overly protective of the people. I was naive enough to believe
I understand that.
But my gut was telling me the whole time that no, this is really about power. It's really about power, and in each individual politician who happened to be in a position to exude that power on a local level, on a county level, on a state level, a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them visually, for everyone to see, got drunk on that temporary power. And it hurt, and that hurt a lot of people.
Oh, I mean, 100%. Look how many businesses were hurt. How many people couldn't see family members when they passed. I mean, it was a shitty time, looking back, and that I can't imagine that ever happening again. I don't think we will comply again. I think too many people, because again, I think people are waking up. I do. I think people's intuition to the bullshit is starting to become awake. At least what I see.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
My fear is, though, ironically, my fear is that something way more significant than COVID in terms of danger may actually happen. And now we have been, I don't know what that could be.
Well,
I mean, maybe a disease that is truly the Black Plague. Who knows? Or, maybe there's an air raid or something. I just wonder if we have been. Yeah, I wonder if the damage to the psyche of the COVID experience could actually come back to haunt us because we are not in any way, shape, or form going to be willing to comply to anything that actually at time might be necessary to save our life.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
know.
No,
I get what you're saying, and I think that's a valid point. I do, however, believe that people's bullshit detector is, I think, a little bit more tuned now because of all that happened. Both sides of the aisle, I think people are a little bit more skeptical about things. They'll still do what needs to be done if they because again, I'm a skeptic, and But if I know that, okay, this is bad, I've got to do something to listen. Like I'll listen. Like I'm not one to buck the rules for the sake of bucking the rules.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of,
To
if
be
they don't make
opposite.
sense to me,
Right.
I will be like, this doesn't make sense. But if there's some level of sense, and if my actions will protect others and the greater good, then I'll take those actions to do that. You know, I will do it in service of others and to help other people. But there's also there's got to be some level of understanding to it.
Yeah.
If you tell me, hey, you got to go sit in a dark room 10 hours a day, you know, for the next 7 days because we think something bad might happen, but we don't want you to see it. I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. No. But if you say, hey, there's a flood coming and here's some, you know, pictures of the water and the storm's coming, you might want to get to high ground. I'll listen to that. You know, there's some factual nature to it. You know,
how do we teach children though about intuition?
I think kids have really good intuition. I think they don't understand it. I think kids have really good intuition.
Do we enable them to feel like their intuition is valid?
Well, I think we could do a better job of that. I think we have to. Here's what I think as parents, and I'm probably guilty of it. We try and teach our kids logic and reasoning, which is good skills to have, like great skills to have. We sometimes forget to tell them that intuition matters as well. It's not that we don't teach them about it or you hamper it. We just don't tell them how powerful it actually is and what it is. Like when you have a feeling about something, like I always say, kids and animals have really good intuition. They can sense when a person's evil. They can sense when something's off. Like if you notice dogs, right? Like dogs can sense if a person's good or if a person's evil. If a person's evil, a dog will not be comfortable around them,
right?
Or if they have a bad nature to them.
So correct.
If they sense the person is a good person, they'll be very comfortable around them, just like, you know, they're one of the owners. Kids are the same way. I feel like kids have an intuition. They don't understand what it is, but I think they can sense danger. They can sense certain things. It's just we've done a bad job of explaining to them what that feeling is, what it means, and how to listen to it when it happens. I don't know how to get better at that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard.
They don't have the same life experience to pull from. So
no, that's why it's pure intuition.
It's got to be more confusing for them. A lot more confused.
Of course, but that's why I think it's that internal intuition they have, right? And as you get older, if you don't understand it, use it, or try and listen to it, it kind of falls by the wayside because you now start letting the world tell you what to think and do, and how to feel and how to react instead of listening to what's inside.
Nothing was more devastating as a child than when you lay your trust in an adult and then something horrible with that adult happens, or they do something horrible and they ruin that trust because you question at a young age, you know, your ability to size up somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, but we all probably still do it as adults. I mean, when's the last time, you know, you don't have to be specific about naming people, but I mean, you know, you expected this kind of character, and you were disappointed.
I mean, it happens more often than not, definitely. I think because again, and maybe for me, sometimes I put higher expectations on people. Maybe that's my own fault, right? Because I'm an optimist by nature, right? I try and look at the world from a positive outlook. So I tend to think everybody sees it that way. They should want to do that. Why wouldn't they want to do it? That's the right thing to do. That's the positive, optimistic thing to do. And when they don't, it disappoints me. But meanwhile, I just need to think maybe that's just not them. They're not wired that way. They're more of a neutral thinker, or they don't care about the same thing. So it's something I wrestle with, definitely.
Has it changed at all for you from the moment you left corporate America and started your own business?
Meaning change in what way?
I don't know. I mean, have you had different experiences about people letting you down character-wise?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think more so in corporate America. I think because corporate America is, you know, it's ripe for that. Luckily, with where I am now, I get to pick the people in my circle, and I'm like in corporate America, you don't pick your circle. Your circle is given to you. These are the people that we hired. You got to deal with them. Some of them are shitty people. Now I'm fortunate enough that I get to surround myself with the people I want to surround myself. Do people still let me down? Sure. But it's few and far between these days because I've made my circle so small and so tight.
Sure.
But it happens, right? And a lot of times I don't think it's intentional on their side. They just don't know how to do otherwise. Like, I think people get into this, I think people get let down by other people without understanding that it's not really a letdown. They just didn't know what else to do. Do you know what I mean? Okay. I'm expecting them to do this because I think everybody sees it that way. They're like, well, this is what I thought you expected me to do because that's all I know how to do. And so there's a big disconnect. Neither one is wrong.
Sure.
But I can't get mad and be disappointed when they didn't know what I expected. And they were only doing what they thought and what they knew.
So a very popular phrase the past, 20 years or so is to understand that everybody has their own unique realities.
Sure.
Communications often suffered by that, right? Because our outlooks on life are different. I'm looking at life and it projects this way.
Yeah.
I'm trying to have a fruitful conversation with you, but you're looking at life and it projects this way.
Yeah.
I understand the big picture of that, but at the same time, wouldn't you agree in certain circumstances, we're all in the same reality?
Maybe.
Oh, here we go. Let's assume for this conversation,
we will assume we're all in the same
physics
reality.
of it, we're all in the same reality.
You're not.
And sometimes it's too easy to give the out.
Okay.
That we just have two different realities and they're just not meshing. Because I hear a lot of that. And I hear other people talk about that in corporate America. They talk about is
agreeing
being
to disagree.
Used, well, yeah, but also sometimes
seeing the world differently.
It's also it can be used sometimes as an excuse.
Of course, yeah. I mean but that's a bigger problem, right? That comes down to we are at a point in time where people don't have to be accountable. Like we are at a time in society where
we tolerate a lot of that.
We tolerate bullshit. We tolerate people not being accountable. We tolerate mediocrity. We tolerate average. We tolerate lazy. We tolerate all this bullshit. I don't know how we got here. We're here. It needs to change. And I think the people that don't tolerate that shit are going to be so far ahead of everybody else in 10 years. Because I think the world is shifting. We've tolerated it too long. And look what it's done. It's created this mass chaos in our society of a bunch of bullshit, of a bunch of shit people argue about that nobody knows why we're arguing.
Right.
People argue for causes. They can't even articulate where the cause came from. I love watching those videos where you have someone just challenging someone on issues, and they're like, and they tell them that the issue's from one party, but it's actually from the other, and they don't even know the origin, but they just agree because they want to be on the team. That's where we are. No one wants to critically think anymore, like we've said 1,000 times on the show. That's the issue, and I think it's not good for society. I can tell you that, but I think it's shifting.
Well, no, because it systematically dumbs down the societal narrative. How about that for a big combination of words? But if we're all operating from a more stupid way, it doesn't benefit anybody.
No, was that movie Idiocracy? I think it was the one. It was like
they had to give that guy the greatest movie award ever because he predicted
where we are today.
Exactly right.
And I hate to say that because I have kids that are growing up in this world.
Matt Judge, who was the?
I think it was Mike Judge. Yeah, I think it was.
Mike Judge. Yeah.
But it's true. Like we've tolerated it, and we've tolerated it because, unfortunately, our generation was afraid to speak up.
So we enabled it.
We enabled it because we don't want to be bothered. Like we were like, just leave us the fuck alone. Do your thing. We don't, as long as you don't bother us. Be average. Be mediocre.
In generations coming up behind us,
we did.
We didn't have to strangle them into sensibilities.
Yeah. Now we have to.
Yes.
Now it's gotten to the point where like we have to start doing that.
Can we? That's the thing. Because
why can't we? Let me ask that question.
Well, there's a portion of society that believes that we can't because it'll hurt feelings.
Do feelings matter?
To a portion of society, apparently it does.
Why? I'm going to play this out.
I don't know why feelings have been elevated to a very unproductive level the past decade. I'm not sure of that.
I can't tell you you're a shitty worker because it's going to hurt your feelings.
As ridiculous as that sounds,
just think about those words.
I don't think you can.
Well, I feel like I will, and I can't.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because if you're not performing to the level I want you to perform at, I don't care about your feelings. Perform. I didn't hire you to make you feel comfortable and good and have I want you to be happy. I want you to love your job. I want you to crush it. But if you're not performing, it's my job to call you out on it. To say, hey, get your shit together.
Yes, that's very logical to me.
There's no entitlement to jobs.
And that's the world that I remember. But in this world we're in now, not the entire world, but a portion of our society believes that they are entitled to their feelings 24/7. And whether it's work, it's social, wherever it is, and their world will operate around the complexities of their feelings.
Yeah. Again, that's a very egocentric viewpoint.
Certainly.
And I think that is one of the big problems we have right now is we need to understand the world does not revolve around you. I don't think the world revolves around me. And not to sound like an asshole, I could if I wanted to. I've put in the time, I've put in the effort, I've paid my dues to get to where I am. I was just saying this earlier today. I said, I work harder now than I ever have. I've been practicing law 21 years. I care more now than I probably ever did. I'm going to push myself harder now than I did 10 years ago. I'm not letting up. And I can let up if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. And I don't get my feelings hurt. Like I want criticized. I want told when I'm wrong. I want told when I fucked up because that's how I get better.
Certainly.
It's not about you can't hurt my feelings.
Certainly.
I mean, when was the last time your feelings were hurt? Think about it.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I don't either. I
just don't care.
No, because I don't care. I don't unless you are ahead of me in somewhere where I want to be. I don't give a shit what you say.
Yeah.
But if I don't want to trade places with you, don't give a shit what you say. I may listen to it. Sure. Maybe there's some facts in there that make sense. I don't care about your opinion. Not sounding like an asshole, but it doesn't. If you're not where I'm going, why should I care about what you think about how I'm doing it?
100%. 100%.
But we get caught up in that too much.
Well, we've given way too much value to everybody's whims.
Yeah.
And I would love to claim that I created this phrase, but I did not. It's a good one. And it's a pushback on everything that's happening today. And it goes something like this. It says, when the whims of a few put an undue burden on the many, we have a societal problem.
That's exactly what we have right now. 100% right now, when you think about it. Because look at the issues we have, like on the fringe. Small portions of society that are,
and it's whims.
It's whims. It's pure whims. But they're causing so much strife for everybody else. And that's the problem. I think we need to just get back to normal.
The longer this festers, though, Rocco, normal starts to become the rule. The current becomes the normal.
Yeah,
which is scary as shit.
But I also think that it allows for the people that see it differently to excel even faster. Because the world needs the people that see it differently. Those are the movers and the shakers of the world. Those are the ones that get shit done. Those are the ones that build companies that make things in the world. When you think about how this country was built, it wasn't built by complainers. It wasn't built by people that had hurt feelings. It was built by people that came and grinded it out every single day to build it. They didn't stop like, oh, you said something to me, my feelings hurt, I'm not going to work today. I need a mental health day. I need a mental health break. You hear that now. It's like, okay, and not to sound like an asshole, because I get it. Like the mental health is a thing. But if you work in a job where it's not like that crazy and you say you need a mental health break, why? Like what else is going on?
The problem isn't the job.
Right. Exactly.
With you.
But they want to make it be like, I need a mental health break from the job. Well, why? Why? What's so hard about it?
No, you're not working at the right spot.
Right. That's the thing. But it's always, no one wants to take accountability. Like, hey, maybe you just aren't efficient. Maybe you just don't know what you're doing and get better skills. Like learn, like take time to actually practice what you do.
That takes like ownership of one's being.
Yes. We are very quick to use that as an excuse.
Yes, and it's uncomfortable for a lot of people
Yeah.
to talk about that because they want to, but they are afraid of the vitriol from the few.
Yes.
The few have a very loud voice because we've let them.
Yeah, and the bigger problem with it is the people that actually do have those problems, they're diminished because everybody has the problem now. So when there are people that have severe
It
mental
doesn't
health
serve
issues,
their own cause that they profess to be part of.
Correct. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me because it's like, if you say you need these breaks and it's so stressful, but then there's people that actually feel that because there is a
medical reason,
there, then it's like it diminishes the value of that.
Yeah.
You don't look at it the same.
The whims cloudy up the actual root of the problem.
Yeah. I mean, and again, that's the problem with society, and it's so frustrating because I love this country. Like I think we have a great country, and there's so many great people here. And I think even the people that are on the whims, I think if they took a step back, like everybody kind of wants the same shit in this world.
I would think.
I mean, we want to help each other. We want to do good, but we don't want to be bothered too much. I don't want you to tell me what I have to do on a day-to-day basis. Just leave me alone. I'm good. But you have these people that are using these whims and these fringe issues as a way for them to grab power. It's like they thrive on being able to cancel someone
or create attention.
Right. Like it makes them feel important. Yeah. I'm going to cancel you because you said this. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, cancel me for what? I'm not on TV. What are you going to cancel me from? Like, I have a personality. I have an opinion on things. Doesn't have to agree with yours, and you're going to try and cancel
the irony of the whole thing is the person that's trying to cancel doesn't do anything.
They're
only canceling people that actually do stuff.
That is the truest statement anyone has ever said. Because think about that. Like, look at anybody that has been canceled. They weren't canceled by a competitor. They weren't canceled by someone ahead of them. They were canceled by people that aren't doing anything. That what they're doing is canceling people. That's it. That's their sole purpose in life. How about do something significant and you don't give a shit about this stuff?
Right. And at that time, you can be evaluated by others. And maybe sometimes you might get a taste of your own medicine and realize, hey, it's not the right way to maneuver.
Correct. Yes. I always used to say, don't say shit about the position until you're sitting in the chair.
Certainly.
Because people say, oh, it must be easy. It must be easy. It's like, no, it's the hardest.
Absolutely.
Where I am today is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it's only going to get harder. It's not getting any easier. And so if people think they have it all figured out, I said, don't say anything until you're sitting in my chair. Like, it's so hard. And it's, I purely live to serve others. That's truly what I'm trying to do and build this firm for a bigger legacy and to give people jobs and to give people a place to go and something to be part of. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done. There's not a day that goes by where I come home like that was easy. It's a good day. It was an easy day. This whole year, every day's been hard.
So I'll close it with this. There was, let me just say this.
Yeah.
To me, we talk a lot about on this show sophisticated thought, and oftentimes I get pushback from people because they are insecure.
Yeah.
With the definition of the word.
Yeah.
They take it personal.
Sure.
I don't know why, but I assume that comes with personal insecurity that a word makes you feel bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Hear me out.
Okay.
I believe that the ultimate in sophisticated thinking when it comes to communication is the ability to self-examine before you speak about others.
Oh, yeah.
If you can effectively self-examine, and you've got at that moment, you still feel the need to speak about others' actions, and you've self-examined that it makes sense to you, by all means.
Sure.
I'm going to guess most of the time, if you critically self-examine before you speak, you won't speak.
Right. Most people don't do that. And that's the thing, because we're all flawed. I'm the most flawed person there is. So I'm not going to say shit about anybody else. Because again, it's like, what's the point of it? What's the point of throwing stones at someone? When you think about it, like if we break this down objectively,
you're looking for a reaction.
Right, but why? But that's the thing. You keep asking the questions, like why? Like why do you need a reaction from me? Why? What does it matter? What does my reaction matter to you?
Well, it's probably rooted in jealousy, which that
Okay.
ties into rational insecurity.
Yes.
I think people also are bored. Getting
Sure.
a reaction out of people, even a negative reaction,
Okay.
at least there's some kind of interaction in my life.
Okay. So take both of those. Being bored, and what was the other one? You said
Jealousy and
insecurity. So, it's a great combat to both of those. Positive action. Do something good, you won't be bored.
Natural.
Do something good, you won't be insecure.
Correct.
Instead, we just want to tear people down to bring them to our level so we feel like we're not alone.
1,000,000% right.
It's like, no, just do something significant. Like, do something good.
Just
in this world.
try.
Yeah,
just try and keep trying. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the conversation really isn't even about the success. There's just a lack of trying.
It's just engage in the process.
I mean,
That's it.
we're not
Do
even
one push-up.
evaluating on success much anymore. We're looking at the landscape and no one's lifting a finger to try.
No,
That's
no.
the insanity. I think that's what really irks me the most is that,
Yeah.
it's like I like yourself and like most in our generation
Mhm.
really kind of grew up in an era where results mattered
Yeah,
in the effectiveness of your life.
right. Wins and losses.
Today, I'm not entirely sure
Mhm.
in all areas that the results make a difference. And even in that
Mhm.
flawed state,
Yeah.
there still is a lack of effort to try.
Yeah, and people
I don't get it.
well, and people want the gold before they dig. They want. I want to be paid $100,000 a year before I work like I make $100,000 a year.
Mhm.
Like, that's how people think these days.
There had to be some kind of societal trigger. And I don't think it was the pandemic.
It was before
there's
then.
There's got to be something that triggered that. And I would
Yeah.
love to find out someone who specializes in this type of thinking and this type of analyzation, just historically to go look back
Yeah.
and say, was it this election or was it this societal moment? Maybe it was in the 90s, maybe it was in the 80s. I don't know.
Yeah,
But at some point, there was a skewing
yeah,
of the value within society, within business,
Yeah.
within education, or the lack thereof, or whatever, where the cart was put before the horse.
right. Yes. And that's not how the world works. Like, you will get what you're worth.
And isn't it interesting too? We have a society dominated by sports, and quite frankly, I kind of dig it.
Yeah,
Dominated by sports, though. And I will say that within sports is often a reflection of societal trends.
sure.
But at the core of it,
Mhm. Yeah.
we value sports because of the competitive nature of the ending,
Correct.
the result,
Yes.
the winner,
Yep.
and the loser.
Correct. Yes.
But we are so afraid to operate in a world that might have us having to put effort in to win or lose.
Right.
But we
Right.
love our fucking sports.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because if people lose in life, it's like, oh, their feelings are hurt.
It's amazing to me.
And it's like, no,
it's
you
like
just didn't try hard.
you
enough.
have an example of the way American business has worked for 250 years,
Yeah.
300 years.
The world
in,
has
in
worked.
athletics.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to even look globally, just look at American business in this
Yeah.
country.
Mhm.
The competitive nature of American business,
Yes.
the way it works, the winner,
Yep.
sometimes plural, winners,
Yeah.
and the losers.
Yes.
And there's all different grades and elements of winning and losing. I get
Mhm.
it. Thank goodness there is.
Yeah.
But we have that example in the thing we love the most, our sports. Yet
Yeah.
we are so afraid to apply the principle of that to our regular life.
No, people need to truly understand that competition creates competence and confidence. Like, without competition, right? How do you build competence and confidence?
Mhm.
Because that's what it takes. Or you have to be competing against someone
Mhm.
to develop skills to beat that person and to develop confidence that you can beat the
You would
person.
think.
Take competition out of it, everybody gets a trophy. Like, no, who's competent? If
Well,
we're all getting trophies, I can just walk up to the plate, not swing a fucking bat, and I'm going to get a first place trophy because I'm here.
in that scenario you just gave, what ultimately happens is you have you've got a absence of excellence then.
Yeah.
You know, operating in a world with an absence of excellence. We can't tell quality from non-quality.
Right.
I mean, that's a scary place to be.
I don't ever want to be there.
Scary place.
I don't ever want to be there, dude. I can't take average. Average is bullshit.
All right. We started out with intuition and we solved the rest of societal's competitive
all
problems.
the problems are done. We solved them all.
All right, buddy.
On
Until next week. Next week we're planning to go Wednesday. Right?
Wednesday,
and I'll get a message out, but to all of y'all, and thank you for this kind feedback.
Definitely appreciate it.
We got a nice little loyal audience out there.
It's pretty interesting.
And we appreciate it.
Yes.
All right,
cool.
Friends, we're out.